My Horizontal Life, a collection of one-night stands, by Chelsea Handler. Picture yourself at 7 years old. Your universe revolves around homework, dinner time, and whether you'll get picked first at recess. Then your older sister walks up with the kind of deal that sounds absolutely terrifying and impossibly exciting at the same time. $5, which at that age feels like winning the lottery, to sneak into your parents' bedroom while they're, busy, and snap a picture. Would you take it? Young Chelsea Handler didn't even hesitate. Armed with a camera she barely understood, she crept upstairs, threw open that door, and captured a scene so beautifully chaotic, her completely naked mother sporting a nurse's hat, being chased by her equally naked father, that it became one of those stories you never quite shake. The frantic sprint back downstairs, the standoff in the basement, the whole glorious disaster taught her something crucial. The most mortifying moments in life make the absolute best stories. This single, ridiculously funny, deeply uncomfortable memory opens the door to Chelsea Handler's world in My Horizontal Life. When it hit shelves in 2005, this collection of painfully honest, laugh-until-you-cry essays didn't just sell millions of copies. It became a cultural phenomenon. Handler established herself not just as another comedian, but as someone willing to say what everyone else was thinking, but too scared to admit. Growing up as the youngest of 6 kids in a wonderfully chaotic New Jersey household, Chelsea learned early that if you wanted attention, you had to fight for it. That scrappy determination carried her from waiting tables to comedy clubs to becoming one of the most fearless storytellers of her generation. Here's what this book promises, and what we're about to explore together. We're not just skimming some funny anecdotes. We're diving headfirst into what it actually feels like to be young, lost, and stumbling through life while pretending you have it together. We're examining those moments that make you want to disappear and discovering why they're actually the moments worth celebrating. By the time we're done, you'll understand something powerful. Your most embarrassing failures aren't things to bury in shame. They're the experiences that make you human, and when you're brave enough to share them, they become the connections that matter most. This book is a hilarious and surprisingly wise roadmap for surviving the beautiful disaster of growing up. Every good story starts somewhere. For Chelsea Handler, that somewhere was a house buzzing with the kind of loving chaos most families only achieve during holidays. Her father, a used car dealer who somehow rarely managed to sell any cars, turned their driveway into a graveyard of automotive projects. He was the kind of guy who would try to pay the gardener with a tree from their backyard, genuinely believing he was offering the deal of the century. Her mother, a sweet German immigrant, showed her love through strategically hidden Kit Kat bars and a remarkable tolerance for the circus happening around her. This was the soil Chelsea grew up in, where love was loud, logic was optional, and boring was never on the menu. Understanding this helps us see her adventures not as random acts of rebellion, but as someone simply continuing the family tradition of living life at maximum volume. Her early romantic experiments were basically research projects with terrible methodology. She and her best friend Ivory spent one memorable summer on Martha's Vineyard, operating under their own constitution of youthful, questionable decisions. Their main philosophy? Men should finance their fun, which led them into the lives of some truly memorable characters. There was Turtle, the charming guy from the local gas station who was perfect for summer, but definitely not built to last past Labor Day. After him came what she called their Latin America phase, dating 2 gorgeous guys who spoke zero English, creating relationships built entirely on hand gestures, dancing, and the universal language of attraction. It was trial and error at its finest, teaching her a crucial lesson. One-night stands are called that for a very specific reason. Trying to extend them is like microwaving pizza a second time. Technically possible, but why would you? The stories get really interesting when her family life crashes into her dating life. She brings home her first black boyfriend, Tyrone, and her father, who would swear up and down he didn't have a racist bone in his body, could only manage to discuss 3 topics with him: basketball, football, and slavery. Later, When Chelsea goes on a date with Jerome, a handsome, intelligent law student she met online, her own insecurities hijack the entire evening. Feeling completely out of her depth with this composed, successful guy, she invents an increasingly wild story about a kid named Linus at the Boys and Girls Club who accidentally set her hair on fire, explaining why she's wearing such a weird beret. The lie snowballs until Linus is a former Siamese twin whose mother tried selling him on eBay. It's pure comedic panic, showing us how we sometimes build elaborate fictions when we feel like we're not enough as we are. The night ends with Jerome at her place, where another complication emerges. His anatomy is, let's say, alarmingly impressive. She describes it as resembling a space shuttle, and she immediately knows this presents what she calls a big problem. But the real catastrophe arrives the next morning. Her parents, who were supposed to be traveling, come home unexpectedly. What happens next is pure slapstick gold. Jerome literally leaping out her bedroom window and sprinting across the lawn just as her father opens the front door. The incident becomes family folklore, with her dad later describing it as, "I hear the Schwarzer jump out of her window and steal a car." It perfectly captures the collision of her romantic chaos, her family's quirks, and that recurring theme of nothing ever going according to plan. As Chelsea navigates her 20s, her life becomes this incredible collection of unforgettable, often barely believable encounters. Each story is basically a field study in human nature, capturing those moments where what you expected and what actually happens are hilariously different. Take her trip to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. First night there, flying solo, she ends up at this wild party and meets Eric, a little person wearing a sombrero, filled with chips and salsa. She's completely charmed. He's funny, unique, and in the tequila-soaked haze of the evening, he seems like the most interesting person on earth. The next morning tells a different story. Waking up to see two tiny feet scurrying toward her bathroom, she's hit with waves of confusion and regret. All that previous night's magic evaporated with the alcohol, leaving only awkwardness and a desperate wish for him to vanish. The whole experience taught her how moments can look completely different in the harsh morning light. Then there's her encounter with Thunder, a male stripper she meets at a bachelorette party in Vegas. This guy was, by all accounts, physically perfect, so stunning that all her friends were mesmerized. For Chelsea, he became a challenge she had to conquer, and she did. But when they meet for drinks back in Los Angeles, the fantasy crumbles fast. Thunder turns out to be a 37-year-old aspiring actor who hasn't quite figured life out. The perfect body housed a far less compelling personality. Their brief fling hammered home a powerful truth. The idea of a person is usually way more exciting than the reality. Getting dumped by someone whose real name you don't even know, someone who takes his clothes off professionally, was humbling in ways she didn't expect, but naturally, she turned it into comedy gold. Not all her encounters were with these physical specimens. Some were memorable for entirely different reasons. There was the guy she met at a club who seemed decent enough, until she went back to his place. After some exploration, she discovered what she described as something the size of a canned Vienna sausage. Horrified, she invented this elaborate story about her friend Ivory needing to pick up her car, which apparently had a homing device like a pigeon, and made a swift exit. It was a crash course in knowing what you want, and, more importantly, what you absolutely don't. But Chelsea's adventures weren't just romantic disasters. They were also deep explorations of friendship. Her friends, Ivory, Lydia, Shaniqua, and her gay best friend Nathan, are main characters in her life story, partners in crime joining her on this chaotic journey. One of the standout stories involves a New Year's Eve cruise she reluctantly agrees to with her roommate, a sweet but painfully naive 28-year-old virgin she nicknames Dum Dum. The cruise, which she'd been dreading, turns out even worse than imagined. It's a budget disaster, with tarp-covered pools, questionable passengers, and a bathroom so tiny she has to sit sideways on the toilet. The whole trip becomes a masterclass in disappointment, hitting peak disaster when Chelsea, violently ill from cheap vodka, gets carried back to her cabin by a friendly guy named Rico, only to have Dum Dum scream and throw a shoe at him. But the cruise's lowest point comes when she meets Les, seemingly the only viable romantic option on board. After a surprisingly forceful encounter in his cabin, she discovers he's an 18-year-old performer in the ship's cheesy dance show. She'd hit what she calls an all-time low. Yet even in this moment of complete humiliation, there's growth happening. She starts realizing that maybe this endless parade of meaningless encounters isn't as fulfilling as it used to be. This self-reflection theme weaves throughout the book, often emerging from the most unlikely situations. One of Chelsea's most consistent traits is her compulsive lying. It's not mean-spirited. It's more like this bizarre, almost artistic form of self-sabotage and performance. The ultimate example happens when she runs into a guy she'd been casually seeing at the restaurant where she waits tables. He's there with his actual girlfriend. Instead of dealing with the awkwardness, she decides to pretend to be someone else entirely, her own twin sister, Kelsey. She commits to this role with breathtaking audacity, treating the guy like a complete stranger and acting like a sweet, bubbly waitress who just happens to look exactly like the woman he knows. When he confronts her later, she doubles down, telling him her sister Chelsea sleeps with everyone, and he should probably get tested. It's such a high-wire act of creative deception that it's both horrifying and genius. It reveals this deep fear of vulnerability, a preference for creating chaotic fiction rather than dealing with messy reality. This talent for turning reality inside out is also central to her friendship with Nathan, her gay best friend who's still closeted to his family and high school friends. She agrees to play his girlfriend at a high school reunion, a role that quickly spirals beautifully out of control. She introduces herself as Beulah and tells someone he's her synchronized swimming instructor. Later, when Nathan gets jealous of a handsome guy she's talking to, he swoops in, claims to be her husband Beulah, and announces she just got out of rehab. The night descends into competing lies, a theatrical performance of dysfunction that's as hilarious as it is revealing about their codependent friendship. But underneath all the laughter and absurdity, a quieter, more thoughtful story gradually emerges. It's about a young woman, slowly, often painfully, figuring out who she is and what she actually wants. This comes to a head in the book's final story. After a work trip to San Francisco, she goes out with Carter, a handsome, successful government attorney. He seems like, quote, marriage material, the kind of guy she's supposed to want. But the night ends in disappointment when it's revealed he's on cocaine and unable to perform. The experience isn't just another funny disaster, it's a moment of genuine reflection. Lying in her hotel room, she feels this profound emptiness. The chase, the conquest, the one-night stand. It all suddenly feels hollow. She tells her friend Shaniqua, "It's not fun anymore. I'm an actual grown-up, and whether I like it or not, someone is going to have to marry my ass one day, so I better start getting ready for him." It's her declaration that she's closing up shop, taking a break from the horizontal life. It's not about rejecting her past, but acknowledging she's ready for something different. The book ends where it began, with her family. Her father picks her and Shaniqua up from the airport in another one of his gloriously terrible cars, and as he drives, he holds court, telling stories and being his wonderfully eccentric self. It's a full-circle moment. The wild journey of self-discovery, with all its bumps, bruises, and bad decisions, leads her right back home. A little older, a lot wiser, and with a collection of stories that are nothing short of brilliant. When you finish My Horizontal Life, it's tempting to focus on the shocking parts, the outrageous lies, the disaster dates, the sheer unapologetic chaos of it all. But that misses the profound heart of what this book actually is. Because underneath the comedy and self-deprecation, Chelsea Handler has given us something incredibly rare: permission to be imperfect. In a world constantly pressuring us to present this curated, filtered version of ourselves, this book celebrates the messy, the awkward, and the unflinchingly real. It's proof that our stories aren't defined by our wins, but by how we handle our losses. Handler's superpower is taking moments of deep humiliation, moments that would make most of us want to disappear forever, and reframing them as comedy. She understands that an embarrassing moment or a questionable costume choice isn't the end of the world. Actually, it's the beginning of a really good story. What makes this book resonate, especially for anyone navigating young adulthood's turbulent waters, is its radical honesty. She doesn't paint herself as a victim or a hero. She's simply a person trying to figure things out, making a spectacular number of mistakes along the way. She's searching for connection, validation, a good time, and she's not afraid to admit it. This isn't just about one-night stands. It's about the universal human search for yourself. It's about that long, winding road we all travel to understand what we truly want from life and love. So what can we actually take away from this whirlwind? Here are a couple of simple, practical ideas. First, learn to embrace your own bad stories. Next time something embarrassing happens, you trip in front of your crush, you say the wrong thing in class, you fail at something you cared about. Try an experiment. Instead of hiding it, think about how you'd tell that story to your best friend to make them laugh. The moment you start finding humor in your own humiliation, you rob it of its power to hurt you. You transform a moment of weakness into a source of strength and connection. Second, practice some radical honesty, especially with yourself. Handler is brutally honest about her motivations, insecurities, and flaws. We all tell ourselves little lies to get through the day, but take a moment to ask yourself, what am I really looking for here? In a friendship, in a relationship, in the future I'm planning? Cutting through our own self-deception is one of the hardest but most important parts of growing up. In the end, My Horizontal Life is so much more than funny essays. It's a reminder that the path to wisdom is rarely a straight line. It's often crooked, messy, and sometimes completely horizontal. It teaches us that it's okay to not have it figured out, that our mistakes don't define us, and that a life lived with courage, honesty, and a great sense of humor is a life well lived. That was a summary of My Horizontal Life by Chelsea Handler. I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at photos from a great adventure. You can see where it went, but you can't feel the thrill of actually being there. The real magic of this book is in Chelsea Handler's voice. The way a particular story unfolds, the timing of a punchline, the unexpected moments of vulnerability. This summary is designed to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or made you laugh, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that might just change how you look at your own wonderfully imperfect life. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.